session 24, as yet to be named. Dave probably has 6 options already.
Depends on what happens. I've
when
got my copy of the Africa lyrics right here.
Oh God.
uh,
You mean or song list, not
song
lyrics.
no lyrics from
Oh, Toto's Africa.
Oh, what? They're
That,
all.
she's
that's what
yeah
I've been doing. That's what the last 3 titles have been
No,
from.
he's pulling titles from nothing but
no,
the
no.
lyrics
Like
for
my
Africa,
brain converted that into Asia, which don't
which
ask me why.
I mean at this time of the year and evening, week, holiday season in general, one need not explain one's little brain hiccups.
Active cognitive
Yeah,
capability.
the associations and whatnot that happen at this time of year. All right, so when we last left our heroes, uh, Sink and Gothwitch had snuck through our underground gorilla city and were above the surface and setting up Alex's backpack of joy for charging up their equipment um, at Alex's behest, and minutes away from grumpy guards descending on their location.
Some girl is going to trip over that cable at some point.
Yeah. um,
Oh, hey, Doris.
yes,
Did you have a chance to read the wrapping up the season
I
thread?
did. I didn't
Okay.
get a chance to comment. I looked at. It's all. Uh, the caveats and stuff, but nothing I really wanted to get into necessarily because
That's cool. Just
but
as long
no,
as you
it's
had a chance.
good. Yeah, no, absolutely, and I thought it was all beautifully well illustrated, and honestly, in many cases, mostly what I've been thinking anyway. So, good stuff. Some of the stuff is like finish this guy up by season 1 was like, well, yeah, but maybe recurring anyway. Anyhow, where was I? Speaking of Alex, Alex and Tahi and Kiln are kind of in various ways down in the central chambers of the temple, trying to analyze WTF is going on down there, with all of the modifications that have taken place that apparently took place to the temple, at the hands of the former temple guardian, and also apparently
Sacrifice.
something like that, and apparently at the behest of the tribe here, the gorilla tribe here, that essentially they seem to have adopted or decided that they were going to help or something. I hate the phrase that they went native, but it certainly seems that they sort of, the temple guardian sort of decided, like, these are my people now and I'm going to take care of them for whatever reason. Prioritizing them above the temple, which seems like pretty
Extreme.
well,
I mean,
say
in our pool, that's like 50% of them.
that's fair. Sure. Certainly Tahi's reaction seems to find it a little bit weird, a little bit shocking that they would ever go, well, something is more important to the temple, but that could, maybe Tahi's the outsider, and maybe that's why there's no more temples around us, that the guardians all kind of went.
Yeah, I mean, after she
south.
killed off the natives around her temple, I mean, she doesn't understand why. Never mind.
Why? Yeah. Yeah. Once I caused a few volcanic eruptions, it was fine. All right. So they're there, and Joe and Matt were in the, I'm going to say, the sort of the receiving room still, and had a heart to heart, which ended with
A lip to lip.
melodramatic heart to heart followed by a lip to lip amongst melodramatically swelling CW music. Is how I imagine.
Way to ruin it, dude.
I mean, this is what it is. I look like completely unrelated to this game. I have to share that right now for a reason that is completely unclear to me. I look like I have fallen and broken both of my ankles.
Okay.
I have my feet are swelling I'm for some reason. I don't know why, season or whatever, but um, I do not have particularly thick legs at the moment, and my ankles are the same width as my calves right now. It's crazy. Anyway, I have them up, and I'm looking at them like, oh my god, this is bizarre and weird. Anyway, okay, so I think I want. Well, first of all, is anybody like me? Because otherwise, I'm aiming in the general direction of sync. But if anybody is me, do speak up. No? All right. Sync. So you guys are up. You and Gothwitch are up at the top and kind of laying out the foldable, unfoldable solar panels that and there's a couple of like skinny packs of bungee cords, and the solar panels have they've got either spring-loaded little deployment things, but there's also a couple that can be they've got like hooks at each corner so they can be like hooked onto stuff and kind of strung up in the air, hammock style to kind of you know be arranged to get the sun or propped up. So there's various ways that you can sort of arrange these things to start catching as many rays as possible and feed them back into. Is it like Alex, the body parts aren't there. It's like a series of battery packs or something like that are being charged
Yeah,
up, like the secondary battery packs.
yeah, just big old batteries.
Okay, cool. Um, and Tiffany is kind of so this team thing's kind of new for you guys, right? Have you been doing this for
Weeks.
Weeks.
weeks? I mean, it seems like, I mean, from what I've caught and you guys have gone through, it seems like a lot for a couple of weeks. Um,
That's what happens when you go to South America and the satellite tries to shoot you out of the sky.
Don't forget the moose.
I'm not bringing up the moose.
Satellite tried to shoot you?
Uh-huh. It's all right. It was an accident on our part.
Okay. I mean, yeah, I mean, I get that's pretty. I mean, it's cool though. I mean, I've been coming to the school for 2 years and I don't really have anything. I mean, not for partly because I'm not really trying, I guess, that much, but um, it's kind of cool how you guys are, um, you know, I figured you were a little bit more. You didn't really seem like a team guy. And now it seems like you're kind of, I mean, you're even like, you got like the official school colors and everything. It just kind of,
Yeah, that's just because that's what the uniform came in.
well, yeah, but you guys got unicorns from the school. That's like, you're like an official, you're like the honor roll kids or something, you're like the official
What a
school
scary
name.
thought. What a very scary thought.
Right? I mean, I don't mean to be insulting. I know those guys are kind of
Yeah, we just kept on
tools,
breaking
but
things until Hellbinder couldn't do anything else.
I, you keep doing that. Like I keep telling you, like I'm pointing out like this thing where like you guys are like really making the team thing work and you keep telling me how it's all happening by accident or it's like I'm doing like you should kind of acknowledge the fact that you guys are like doing this, like really big. This isn't an accidental thing. This is you guys. How'd that happen? I mean, you don't tell me it was just some sort like what's the
Nah, it was an accident. But that's the thing, is it just keeps working. I wasn't a team guy when it all started out.
are you a
Like,
team?
I just wanted to do all this by myself.
But you're a
But
team
those
guy
guys
now?
keep on helping.
Yeah, but you're helping them also.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just working. I don't know. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, you can't really explain it. It just keeps going. And you know what? I'm okay.
Hmm. I mean,
I wasn't at first, but I'm okay with it now.
that's pretty cool. It's also kind of lame, but it's pretty cool. I mean, it's lame like, just you're like becoming a Chad, but not really. Like if you didn't know you, then you'd think that, but you're not. Like no, none of you are. That's pretty. You know what it is? It's like you're just skipping school and going straight to like the part where you just save the world or whatever. Or
Watch out, she's calling you a grown-up.
that's pretty. I mean, I I don't know. I did that a couple days ago. Was it a couple days ago? God, it seems like it was a week ago. It feels like it was a month ago. But I did that with the thing happened with Golem and saved some people and stopped the bad guy and held on to everything and kept it from going crazy until the rest of the HHL showed up and everything like that. And I was scared out of my mind. I think my hands were still shaking a day later. And this is just like we're in Africa. We are in Africa. We're in like a whole different continent all the way around not all the way around the world, but like on the other side of an ocean just because you guys decided it was the right place to go. And people are listening to you and agreeing.
We're dealing with one thing at a time. It's really bad, it's like a whole lot, but that's how we get here.
You're just so chill about how not chill this whole thing is. It's kind of, I didn't. Do you remember when you like got to school by like literally dropping into my folks' car?
Yeah.
I didn't figure that by this point in the year this would be where you were or we were. Or man, it's I didn't really understand how you're pretty good at some of this. I mean, I'm pretty good at some of this too, but I didn't think that you were. Sorry. But yeah, man, you really you got like and she kind of gives you the little slug on the shoulder kind of thing. It's like you're kind of a you guys got planning down and you're just so relaxed about it. It kind of weird. She is going to her words are intended by the GM to shift your labels.
All right.
She is I think it's superior up. I had changed my mind because I was thinking for something else, but then your responses kept shoving me a different way. I think it's superior up. Ah, man, I want to go mundane down, but you're so chill about it.
Sounds like Danger Down then.
Danger?
Yeah. Yeah, superior up, danger down. You're not a risk
well-
to others. You guys have got it worked out. You're not actually a threat to yourself and others. Yeah.
I'll take that.
Is you'll take it?
Hmm.
Okay. And I mean, I'm kind of leaving the door open here for you to say and or do anything in response that may or may not be a move or a team thing or a vulnerability thing or any deal like that. I'm just, you know more than me whether or not you've got an angle on any of that stuff. Um, but that's entirely up to you. If you don't have anything, then my suggestion would be that you start to say something really heartfelt and sweet and adorable, and you're immediately interrupted by gorillas before you get a chance to do it. And everybody watching the show throws popcorn at the screen, going, "Oh, come on!" But
Except for the little video camera hovering above.
Well, that's where the popcorn gets.
where
thrown
yeah,
in.
Alex is like throwing it at like nothing, and hanging at the virtual screen in the middle of the air in front of him, going, "Come on!" Anyway.
No, I'm fine with that. Like I could probably do the share vulnerability or weakness move, but it's like,
Or even you could tell them how they're awesome. I don't know. That's up to you. You've done that a bit with her in the past anyway, so it isn't like it hasn't been done. But no, are we interrupted by gorillas instead?
yeah, I think we're interrupted by gorillas.
What though? What do they interrupt? In which case, I want to know like what does it look like he was about to say and or do or whatever? Where was that going? Facial expression or the little thought bubble or the narrator's yellow box in the corner? Where was he going with this before he was saved from his own ineptitude by the gorillas?
I don't know. Probably something about superpowers being cool and helping out. Gothwitch being able to save the day and stuff like that. Like, yeah.
You shouldn't worry that you're super glittery and kind of no. Both. Yeah. Just,
Yeah.
just
Oh,
as,
do it! Do it!
Yeah, that seems like the.
and then
It's-
Being glittery
it's fun.
isn't all bad.
It's fine that your superpowers are sparkles. Like,
yeah, I was really into She-Ra reruns when I was a kid. Like Roddy's mind plays through a number of different verbal gambits. I like She-Ra, just like little snippets and bits of dialogue. I like She-Ra when I was a kid. It's like,
Where it plays out, 10 seconds and then does a rewind and then plays out 10 seconds and then does a rewind.
oh God, Sailor Moon was really popular with a lot of kids. Like when we were little. No, and did like series of horrible.
Everyone's dead. The dirigible's in flames, and I've lost my hat. Yeah.
And then and the gorillas. It's like, how did you get up here? Oh, thank God. Anyway,
I'm really sneaky.
they kind of look at all the stuff that's arranged here, and they're like, we need to keep you below ground. There are things out here. These are. They're watching for living creatures above ground. These should be fine, but we need to get back where it's safe.
Like, what sort of things looking for living creatures?
The bugs.
Oh, those guys.
Mm. They serve the enemy.
I'm sorry, did you say Vasquez?
No, the bugs.
The bugs.
No, I thought I thought Roddy said, "Oh, Vasquez."
Oh no! Oh, those guys.
Oh, those guys.
Good thing I got my headphones on.
I think that would be funnier.
Oh, Vasquez. We've never heard of Vasquez before. Everyone's confused.
God, another character.
Fanboys are going back to the last like 24 issues, going, what the? When was this guy ever mentioned? No.
See, this is a reference to aliens.
And this is
and
why.
Vasquez.
And this is why you don't have the letterer Letter of the Comic Books, based off of a verbal transcript from the scriptwriter. Anyway,
With an accent.
with an accent. All right. I'm working to make sure that Joe and Metz kisses as long as possible. So we'll go back over to I mean, I've been around Dave and Margie to know that they go on uncomfortably long for everybody around anyway. So
Ha!
James will back me up. Anyway. But back in the temple, we have a couple things going on here. I remember what Kiln was up to. Alex, what were you? You were just trying to hack the entire, like, sort of get tied into the system in some way, shape, or form to kind of.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. All right.
Like whatever Entrapta would do at this moment, I'm pretty much doing. Okay.
Yeah. You. I was trying to think of the video game. I've been pondering this in my head for a couple of days now, and I've been trying to think of the video game that this puts me in mind of. And I think there's probably a couple of them. It doesn't especially matter. But there's you don't know the language of any of the symbolism or iconography or anything that's being used in any of the carvings or on any of the creations devices, any of the stuff that's here in the temple. But you can easily go ahead.
We have one thing working for us, which is we know the temple can learn new languages.
Yes, true.
And translate presumably between those languages.
Right. Where I was going with the iconography is that even if you may not understand that this particular thing means whatever, El Baño, doesn't really matter. They're consistent. There are icons that recur, and cataloging them, and maybe a little bit of help from either Tahi or Kiln to go, well, this is essentially used for this. You can sort of like broadly start to associate this icon means this. This icon means the other thing. And if you're, the best I can think of a little bit, and putting it in something that it might occur to Alex is the idea of video game crafting systems or socketing weapons, where you've got, basic socketing where there's like you put in a socket, you've got one socket and you put in this particular kind of gem and you get that very simple, straightforward effect that's very directly related to that thing, that rune or whatever. But if you take this rune and add it to this other rune, you get an effect that you can, if you squint, you can go, okay, I can kind of see that. Like if I take fire and add wind and I get lightning, sure. Fire, lightning is the fire of the sky. Sure. Okay.
I'm going to take this moment actually to show the video game that does this, which is Mages of Mistralia, where you have these 4 core verbs like create and ice and other, some other stuff.
Yeah.
And you can attach things like long range or rotate right or bounce or a bunch of other stuff.
Yes.
And individual players can create individual spell books. So yeah.
Thank you.
I bring this up because I encourage anybody who likes that sort of gameplay to go play this goddamn game because it's fantastic. But anyway,
I'm making a note, but yeah. So let's say that Alex is thinking of that or some Halcyon equivalent, because you start to see the connections. You start to see, okay, well they took whoever the temple guardian in your head. You probably maybe you're kind of associating a Tahi-like personage, and you see the associations they're making. You see at the beginning very, very simple associations. Okay, you're seeing the single socket. I get life, and that does that here. Okay, and then I take life, or I take sight, and I take memory, and I get this thing that does a thing. And I take hearing, and there's multiple combinations, a lot of them having to do with memory, and they're all being associated to that big sort of chunky hard drive, basically, as you've had it explained to you, and which certainly seems to be the case. And the further out you get, the more there's two different ways to read it, and it's possible that both of the ways to read it are accurate. The more complex they get, another perfectly legitimate and way that you could possibly argue to describe the combinations are I was going to say complex, and then I had another one, and it was sort of desperately convoluted. Like, you can't decide if it's the inspiration that comes of really truly understanding a thing, or just, this is probably close to what I'm going to want, and if I don't get quite what I want, I'll just accept it because fuck it, we need this. Let's jam these 5 together and pray.
Yeah, it's a hack. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's some of them are probably, you would guess, not even working at close to 50% of what might be considered efficiency or even efficacy, but they're working a little, and a little is better than not. So you're, in your head, and by in your head, you could also be in your virtual sort of outside brain. You've begun to kind of catalog the iconography and how it's been associated, and sort of the effect that they're meant to equal, to the point where, as you're getting further out and you've begun to sort of understand the purposes, you can start to make pretty solid guesses as to, well, they put this and this to get this together, so my guess is they were probably trying to get this kind of effect, or that's what I would think would happen. So my guess is this was meant to do X. Okay. They don't have now. So now I'm going to lay a couple of parameters around this. They do not currently have like surface to air lasers. Somehow. They don't really have offensive systems, and you can't decide whether that's because they don't have the capability of doing that, because all of the really truly interactive bits of the temple were brought here, so there's not anything out there for that, or if it's simply because it didn't occur to the person who was doing all of this. But that doesn't seem to be a thing. It's a lot of hiding. It's a lot of concealment. It's a lot of intelligence gathering in the localized area, preservation, to a certain extent, maintenance and repair, that kind of stuff. That's the general gist of it. But I leave it as the person, I kind of leaving it to you and Kiln to kind of sit here and go, this is the thing that this thing can do. I am willing to be convinced about to damn near anything up to and including, well, between Tahi, Kiln, and I, we can get the things that this thing wasn't able to do by recombining the bits and pieces, that kind of stuff. Anyway, that's what I'm laying out there as a thing, sort of as a spin-off of various stuff that we talked about before and some other roles that were happening and all that kind of stuff. So this is you, and so again, sort of comic frame up to this is Alex kind of working on this and kind of looking at all the pieces and seeing these sort of blocks floating in the air above her head, these square kind of icon things, and this plus this equals this, and this plus this plus this plus this. Question mark? This plus this plus this, blocks 1 and 3 should cancel out each other, but inexplicably I'm actually getting this other thing? Okay, filing that away. So on and so forth, so forth. And I'm looking at now the diagram that you put up here. Yeah, I would say that the level of complexity that you're talking... What is that? Oh my God. That's probably a step beyond the level of complexity that this thing ever quite achieved in terms of combinations.
Well, that's good because this is WordPress.
I mean, yeah, but although WordPress is a cobbled together system from other disparate systems that just kind of manages to work, is actually a fine analog. Anyway, I'm giving you that toy box to work with as you see fit because it seems relevant. Okay, so having said that, that is, oh my god. Yikes. I'm looking at the WordPress thing and just kind of like holding my head in my hands. What was the name of the game? What was it called? The other one that you were talking
I'll,
about?
I'll put a link in the chat for later.
Okay, cool. All right. Kiln, you were heading out to the outer rim of the whole shebang to kind of see if you could make, I should say, heads or tails of what might have been the final great effort of this Temple Guardian. Is that correct? Is that kind of a reasonable summary of
Yeah.
what we're heading for? Okay. What specifically do you think you're looking for? Like, are you looking for the last great failed thing that clearly didn't go as intended, or like the culmination in some kind of ultimate like complex thing that actually doesn't seem like a cobbled together hack, but is actually almost like something they managed to make that was intentional? Do you think? I mean, what is Kiln's expectation here? That the last great effort was a failed state, a bridge too far, or that it was the last great achievement?
I mean, not entirely sure.
curious.
It could be that this was the last thing that the Guardian felt necessary to protect or help these people. It could be that it was the last thing that they were able to do, that this final bit in some way, diverted enough power away from the Temple Guardian that they could no longer sustain themselves, or that they were literally like part of the final ring, or that something else happened and the defenses weren't quite enough and the Guardian ended up leaving or going out, defending in a more forward face-to-face approach.
Gotcha. Okay. How about you give me looking over at Kiln here. I think you have the weirdest stat spread right now. I'm just gonna.
It's something.
It
It's
is.
really fun when people, when it comes time to rearrange stuff.
When I think about how Roddy was like 1-1-1-1-1-1-1, and then I look at yours, it's very different.
Yeah, it's
Which-
something.
It is. It's definitely something. It's really funny, honestly. All right. Okay. So what I'm going to ask you to, what I think is the thing here, because this is sort of understanding. There's a certain amount of intuitive understanding here because it's just Ancient's tech, which isn't even necessarily your tech. You're kind of going on instinct. You're kind of going on, well, this temple thing seemed to almost like sort of reject whatever the logic of the agent was and go for something that seems to make a little bit more sense to me, which is take the ancient tech and do something useful with it that applies to the quote unquote modern day.
It may have not been my people's tech, but our civilization was
Built around
to
it,
a certain
certainly.
degree around it. So
Right. And there was a certain amount of adapting it to your needs that you're kind of, I think, maybe understanding in hindsight that Guardians never really approved of, because they were built not to do that. They were built to, you know, preserve this tech. And then this thing, in this instance, it's very much different. There isn't that drive for nothing but preservation, but for adaptation for, the current situation, which is very interesting. So I'd like you to unleash your powers in sort of a combination of overcoming the obstacle of understanding, but also one of the other things for unleash your powers is perceiving. Perceiving a thing, understanding a thing, not like assessing the situation, kind of perceiving, or even the kind of stuff that you get from mundane when you're piercing the mask, but just the simple like holistic perception of a thing. So it's so sort of a combination of both those things, like overcoming that barrier to understanding, and at the same time like just getting it.
Yeah, it could be, if I roll well, the me just being there, activating my own inner magic, causes all the circles to light up in a really do we want this thing turning on kind of way.
Yeah, it's
first episode of Justice League.
It's definitely channeling Kiln abilities. Certainly. 100%. So I think Unleash Your Powers is definitely the way to go with this, both because of application and because of potential outcome or special effects.
I'm happy with that outcome.
Well, yeah. Okay. So unleash your powers to overcome an obstacle. Reshape your environment. Reshape your environment. Interesting. Or extend your senses. Roll freak. Extend your senses. That's why I was going with that. I hate you do it. All right.
Oh, wire's loose. You could
just I'll just lick this lead to see if it still has power real quick. No, that would be a 6. Okay. There's nothing so prosaic and obvious as, oh, look, there's a stone panel here into which somebody has crudely carved the indents for a handprint, which I will simply insert my hand into. And you don't like sit there finding, you don't find the Guardian's head sitting on top of a block of stone, or anything really exactly like that, but you see you do see the Guardian in this. Literally the physical pieces, parts of the Guardian in some of the outermost workings. Not like there's a piece here or laying on top of a thing or something like that, but you're seeing almost shadows of it, like imprints on the stone. Imprints isn't the right word. I say shadows, but I'm thinking shadows like Hiroshima shadows. Does that make sense? Is that a weird reference? Okay, but that you're seeing, and it's hard to initially spot, and you're kind of coming back to it, and you're seeing basically it looks like almost like power flares where you can see the ghost of some sort of interaction, like the chest, the torso, a hand, the face most prominently in one place where there's like sort of an upright plinth about 7 or 8 feet high, and right sort of in the center of it, whether it's that pattern recognition that makes people see, you know, a Messiah's face and toast, or if it's actually the thing, but you're pretty sure it's the thing. There. And that, I like what you were saying there about like sort of like, you know, activating your power and laying your hands on the thing. And there's that instinct there, certainly in that one, where you kind of just want to reach out and go, am I seeing this thing that I'm seeing, or is it really really there? So, and I'm saying this, I'm not, if this is not what happens, do shout out, but I'm having you reach out and sort of touch this thing because you sort of said like reach out and touch this thing and like put your power into it. Doing that in this place with this face and just kind of seeing if it reacts like the way the remnants of the temple did back in the museum. It was like the thing had been waiting for this. If not for you specifically, then for this somehow, whether it was, you know, someone like Tahi, or for maybe the gorillas to finally achieve the ability to do this, or maybe you. To a certain extent, it kind of feels like it was waiting for you. It really strongly feels like it was waiting for you, and you can't decide whether that is, and in the flash of it, like, I feel like there's a little bit of immediate self-doubt about that. Like, this feels like it was designed for me, and it's like, is that because it was, or because I just think way too much of my own importance? Like, but man, it really feels like it was waiting for me to touch this thing. Which then, if any of it is true, begs the question, how? The lines of power, which were already kind of faintly there, really flare up. Alex would take note. Tahi shouts. Like, it's like a wordless kind of like, kind of thing. And the whole idea of the shadow of the face and the stone is definitely not an illusion, because the eyes, where the eyes would be, kind of in the, yeah, there you go. That picture for Mars is great. The eyes kind of flare up. The face becomes very pronounced. The glare from the various stones cast shadows where the imprint and the impression of the guardian's body is much more obvious, visible in that outer ring. The eyes light up, like I said, the fingers and the hands. It's almost would Empire Strikes Back be a movie that your friends would have shown you by this point? I don't know if Kiln would make the connection to that one.
I'll let Alex answer that question.
Would that have been in the litany? Would that have been in the holy texts that you had to get Kiln through?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. In that case, you know, like there's almost a sense of that pose but spread out over like 20 or 10 to 15 yards worth of the outer ring of that pose from Han Solo and the Carbonite. You know, intentional, but at the same time somewhat stricken, the expression. Everything lights up, but most intently right where Kiln is at, and the air above this thing in a weird way kind of superimposes itself over the bit that only Alex is seeing, where the different little pieces are going together, and you're seeing it's almost a different kind of hack, Alex, because what you're seeing here is something that just jumped the queue to, I can't get it to do what I want, so I have to be in here and make myself a part of it so I can introduce the complexity that I need for this thing. And all of the runes for sight and understanding and storage and memory and even language and being able to figure out language, like given a sample, figuring, extrapolating but the extrapolation of language and all this other stuff, bits that were barely able to work through multiple samples have been, again, I'm going to say again, sort of jumped the queue to this higher order stuff. And the air above this thing lights up with images. And, Kiln, the first images are images that you're familiar with. It's images of. Actually, I take that back. The first images are images out of your own myth. The ancients, as they walked the world, and like great giants, the size of skyscrapers in Halcyon, with great ponderous strides, wandering the world, wandering the oceans, beyond understanding. And even now, thinking of, looking at these images, you're thinking to yourself, it's like, yeah, but that's probably not what they were. This is just these are the stories I were told. This probably wasn't what it was. And then that fading away, or their departure, or whatever happened with them, and then flashes of what you would think of as your present day, like your time when your people were in the world and living and spreading everywhere, and just loving the world, and also battling and the wars, and the almost like to a certain extent the kind of the forever recurring cyclic war of defending yourself against the same creatures that gave you the gifts of all the all the ancients, technology and or magic, depending on how you looked at it. The fading away of your own people, and weirdly, and simultaneously, really the fading away of that great enemy, and the rise, sort of that like that fast forward time lapse that you see with like mushrooms coming, blooming and fading, and flowers blooming and fading, but the whole world like that. Islands appearing, temples that had once been in, next to lake beds, now on mountaintops, over literally millions of years, thrust up, so that, what was once a lake bed is now, on a ridge in the world's driest desert at the top of a mountain range, and that sort of thing. And some of this focusing more kind of like real here locally with the temple, and the local tribe that is first, actually killed when they wander anywhere near there, and then scared away, and then occasionally sheltered, and then that growing relationship there, but also the rise around of humans, people, civilizations rising, et cetera, and so forth. And unexpected, like there's a great fearful blankness. And I say fearful in that it literally projects a sense of fear and uncertainty, and then stars and ships flying away from, like, rising up, that I think of it as somewhat iconic shot that you always get past rockets that are driving the shuttles up into the atmosphere that are pointed back towards the ground, so you see the rockets, but in this case you're going back past a ship that you don't recognize, and the ground below is definitely this jungle, and rising up and out into the stars, and generations of people living out there, and with the planet behind fading more and more into the distance. And at least in some of the flashing visions that are happening, that ship sailing into the stars, and where in some of the previous embodiments of the history that you've seen flashing out here, where the constellations and stuff are bodies. You're still seeing that as they're going out. I don't know if you guys have ever used one of those cool star apps on your iPad or your phone, where they don't just show you pick out the constellations for you, but they actually draw the art around the constellation so you can see it. You're seeing that kind of thing in the stars as the ship is in the stars, except it's not like Apollo or Pisces or Libra. It's those same ancients, the great wandering, striding bodies that were once on the earth, are out there amongst the stars in these shadowy forms that embody whole systems, and they're turning and looking and waiting for this ship that's approaching toward them, and their regard is not kind. They've been reminded by this of this place that they had left that still seems to vex them. So somehow this thing is actually seeing future things, like what Metz described and stuff, and it's flashing. And once it's done the cycle, it starts kind of, I'm going to say, dream hopping from flash to flash, because there's no rhyme or reason or logic to it. It's all just nonsense of, some random person, in a cafeteria, dropping their tray with all their food on it, and then then it's JFK getting shot, and then it's, a battle on the Great Plains of Lemuria, and Kiln's people all charging, and more of the rock creatures, charging along with them, and these other things boiling out of the jungle toward them, all this kind of stuff, and it's just all over the place. Like it's just dream association that doesn't make any sense to anybody except for the person who's dreaming it. Kiln, what do you do?
Calls for his brown pants.
I stop. No, because you're seeing everything. I could have said this probably a lot shorter, but you're seeing everything from before you to after Met. Somehow.
I call out to Alex.
You're also
I'm gonna
seeing, I want to make this clear, Alex and Tahi are seeing this as well.
Okay, good. I
Yeah.
just want to make sure he's recording.
This
it,
is
or they're
a
recording.
it's like a planetarium exhibit hanging in the air up in the like a 3D hologram thing hanging up in the air above the whole arrangement. It's taking up the whole room in the air above all of the stuff. Some portions of the stuff are contributing to it, but in most cases it's essentially just sort of using the network. Tahi, either now or at some other point, will explain that there were certain things that happened in the temple that required that called up for visions to occur, and that's probably part of this. But what the visions were certainly not this. So it's not wholly impossible that this could be. Just never occurred to me that it would be, whatever. She's not saying this right at this point, obviously, but that's presented at some point. So yeah, Kiln, please tell me you're seeing this.
And recording it.
Yep.
Alex, what do you do? Or are doing, aside from, as you say, recording it?
Do I think this is an actual vision of the feeder?
Yeah. For that, I would say some kind of assess the situation, probably. Or, well, Jesus, I don't know. Are the questions even kind of matching up to something like this? I think this might be a freak roll for you, too.
Oh, don't throw me in that briar patch.
Yeah. I think this is like because I don't like the questions for this. I think this is just like a unleash your powers kind of thing.
All right, well that's 11.
What is this thing tapping into? Oh, this is lovely. Too much of this lines up. Okay, it's too much of this lines up with both what Kiln has told you, what Met has told you, what you know of what's been shown, like that is for all intents and purposes counts as known history. Too much of it lines up for it to be a complete fever dream. You don't know how the stuff that Met's talked about that you know for sure is like future timeline stuff could be here if this isn't getting some kind of thing. I think it would be fair to say that it is. I mean, I think your science on the science on this, for your understanding of the science on this, would be a little bit shaky, but somebody out there who's an expert in this kind of theoretical, timeline, dimensional stuff would say that you'd be, you could probably find somebody who would argue in your favor that this is a timeline. And it seems to have, I would say, and I'll kind of throw this in here as just sort of like bland interpretation or like sort of just Gestalt interpretation. It strikes you as it feels like a nightmare. It feels like a very internal thing. It feels like I know a bunch of stuff and I went to bed worrying about all that stuff with a bunch of coffee. So I am not sleeping soundly. And I am mixing together 1,000 of my best and worst musical hits into this playlist of all that has been and all that could be, based on the likelihoods that I figured that various things could happen and all that kind of stuff. But bad is happening. You specifically did not miss that the whole section of the vision that's really around what's going on with you guys right now and, a hazy cloud 30 or 40 years in either direction is all just a fear ball. It's not it doesn't ever untangle. You don't get anything about Joe. You don't get anything about anything that's happened within the last 20 years or 40 years or 50 years and nothing really that's happening right now. So this is composed of bits that are true, known, likely, and then all the shit that I fear to have happen.
Okay, so if I was to sum up the last 15 minutes in one sentence, it would be the remaining Guardian managed to upload some sort of fragment of their self to this system to keep things intelligent, and that thing is now having a nightmare.
Yes. And to what purpose? Understanding it, they were trying to warn somebody, whoever showed up here that could actually turn them on, warn them that this is bad shit's happening, although it doesn't look as though it came through completely ungarbled. Or they went crazy in the interim, which is...
Or that we didn't know bad shit would happen.
Okay.
Right.
So I have two goals then. I need to basically bring this thing into better focus.
Yeah.
To basically wake it up and get some reasoning out of it. And I need to deal with this sort of nightmare fugue state that it's stuck in. So what I'm going to do is the networking and the reconfiguration and the added processing power and all that to roll comfort and support with Soldier, because I am acting on orders and relying on my training.
Okay, I buy that. Realizing that you probably may or may not actually need it from a narrative point of view, it would probably make sense to have some people with you in case you need help wrangling this particular.
We got Tahi and Kiln right here. Who else
Yeah,
do we
no, absolutely. But just kind of like and Kiln, do you keep your hand on this, keep projecting this thing, or do you kind of like lay off, or what do you do?
Well,
What is
does it,
coolest
like-
to you?
does it like start repeating back over at any point, or
Rep-
is it just going infinitely into the future?
No,
in the
no,
past?
it doesn't. It does. I wouldn't say it's repeating. I would say that once it gets up to a certain point, like the whole like, and we're sailing into the open, gaping cosmic jaws of the shit that we thought we had escaped. It then starts to randomly sort of bounce around with that sort of tenuous connective logic of dreams. So you get bits and pieces kind of all over the place. So it managed sort of one coherent string of in the beginning this and in the end this, and here's everything basically sort of in between. And now it's like, you know, more random and just sort of it's not looping. It's become less coherent. But Alex is doing stuff, and it could be that if you stay, I say connected, if you stay engaged with it where you are, there's a good chance that whatever you're doing and whatever they're doing meet somewhere in the middle. So you could be helping from where you are, or you can kind of wait and see and just sort of keep the lights on for this thing while Alex does their bit where they are. Stand ready, I guess. Be prepared.
I mean, yeah, I guess I kind of keep it going until I get a. I assume I'm in some amount of communication with them just based off of them having cameras literally everywhere.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely a safe assumption. I mean, Alex did, heard what you said. Yeah, drones everywhere, and I mean, Alex, do you have instructions for like keep this thing, try to keep this thing as steady as you can while I try to figure out how to talk to it.
Make like a paladin and lay on hands while we heal this thing.
Got it.
Do you? Because okay, okay. So, Joe, Met. That was some kiss. The earth is literally moving beneath you. Rumbling, shaking. That's actually, wait, that's, what the, that's actually happening. You always thought that was kind of a metaphor. In this case, apparently not. There is a very distinct, it's somewhere between a vibratory hum through the floor and that sense that somewhere very nearby in the building, somebody's wash machine is terribly off kilter and out of balance and starting to slam against the side of, and the drum is starting to slam against the side of the wash machine and shake the whole place.
We
No.
we should find out what's going on.
I'm
We should find out
assuming,
what's going on.
I'm assuming we know generally where they've gone.
Yeah, the center of the temple. Yeah, and if you without too much preamble or chatter, if you guys start to head that way, you get basically out into the hallway, and you I mean the guards were.
We suddenly remember that we have comms to talk to everybody.
Yeah. Well, there's a combination of things going on here, kind of all at once. The guards are a little bit shook by all this happening, and you come out there, and they're like, they don't really respond immediately to you anyway, because they're kind of like trying to, and they're like, hey, wait a minute, and Grogun, was it Grogun? Grogun, is hurrying, at least as much as he can hurry, down the hallway from the other direction. And he's about to say something. Between you two and him, in the hallway, a temple guardian appears. And I say a temple guardian because they very clearly not Tahi. The appearance is more, I want to say, statuesque. Facial features a little bit more falcate, a little bit more narrow, elongated, less human looking, honestly. It just like is suddenly there, and then glitches like, and then back, and says, Sarn Gore, King, you've returned. I expected you to be the one who activated. I was expecting you, and then it's gone again.
Oh, he activated something.
Bow wow, chicka chicka bow wow.
But the some kind of temple guard, and again that look of really weird, like sort of like surprised recognition from the silverback, and everything. But this one's definitely sort of aimed at, definitely addressing Joe. Showing up in your location, and certainly seems to be so what you're getting as you head in, like they must be at the main temple. Whatever's going on is coming from there. Come this way. And what you're getting, Joe and Matt both, through as you're going, is the temple, I'm going to say the temple collectively, continues to try to send messages to you. Keeps trying to talk to you, I should say, as you're going. It just keeps popping up where you happen to be at that point in time. Eye contact never gets made. It always feels like a recording playing back where the eye contact never quite meets, and usually isn't actually looking the way it's looking where you were 5 seconds ago. And they never quite finish a sentence.
Are they basically saying the same thing?
No, it's different stuff. It's different stuff, but I was unable to determine who would be your current inheritor, but I do know that and then the next thing is like visitor from the future, and that's all they say. Completely unrelated and in a different hallway. Threat from the future. No, threat from the past. Sorry, I get those two mixed up. I've been getting those two mixed.
I'm going to have Kiln realign the rabbit ears until reception goes.
All right, stand just like that. Now lift your right foot. What was that kid?
Are they getting these messages? Just
no. This is
not that I would know, but
yeah.
But,
this is where you are specifically.
right. Okay.
But yeah, it most of the time it feels like recordings and stuff like that as you're like bits where it's like, when you find this, when you eventually meet me, that kind of stuff. You get to the main chamber and you get in, you come in through the main archway, and Grogun stops staring. You guys probably at least pull up to take stock of what the heck is actually going on. The Temple Guardian's image like pops in next to you and is looking up at all of this. And this part doesn't seem like a recording. It's like, oh, this is bad. And then is gone again. So Kiln is probably nearest you, has their hand like on like a plinth and seems to, and you know the stones are all lit up in the way that seems to happen when he touches things like this.
What are you guys doing with my temple?
It's a kind of scene that looks like it should be noisy and isn't nearly as noisy as you think it would be. A lot more of the noise is like there's bits and pieces of sound playing. Maybe you can't decide if it's sound you're actually hearing or sound you're just perceiving somehow. But there's also shouting going on between, you know, like it's almost like say Empire Strikes Back. I don't mean to be making a bunch of Star Wars references, but you know, Empire Strikes Back, where it's like Han and Chewie running around inside the Millennium Falcon when, you know, it's like, no, well, try this thing. How about that? Well, that didn't work. You know, as it's, you know, everybody trying to sort out their stuff. Alex, tell me what's this look like from the inside, and then we'll get to some kind of. Yeah, there is a little bit of max headroom in here, I guess.
So Alex's basic insight here is that the ancients have this great technology to do awesome things, but they probably don't have the computer science that our modern civilization has. They don't know how to organize systems. They don't know how to run things efficiently. I'm not saying they're inefficient, but like in terms of optimization.
There's a level of complexity that is beyond what this stuff is naturally able to accomplish. There's a disconnect because you've got the temple where that certainly seems to be the case, and then you have the temple guardians who seem to be, in the same way that the temple guardian jumped the queue, the temple guardians themselves seem to be a leap forward in level of complexity. But yes,
right. It's like comparing a pilot to an aircraft.
Yes.
So what it seems here has been done is that somebody took the pilot and you know, sort of scraped off all the non-essential stuff and put them in as the autopilot. So what Alex is trying to do is to give that component more space to work.
Ooh, okay. How is that? What does that look like?
Autonomy or just space?
Well, I mean, space in the computer science sense, which is just capacity.
Yeah. Ooh, I like that.
Right, but as opposed to autonomy, which would be not.
It seems like they have autonomy now, or some degree of it.
Yeah, certainly Tahi.
And Alex is definitely not going to mess with that one way or the other. If this thing has its own volition, great. We'll talk to it and find out what it needs. But right now, it's just like it feels like it's tied down, and we're kind of cutting the cords and giving it more room to work around in.
Okay, cool. I like it. Yeah, it's I shouldn't say to a certain extent. It's very much like, in order to achieve the thing that it was trying to do with the tools it had, it needed the power, but at the same time, it's confining itself. It's consigning a more advanced system to a more primitive enclosure.
Yeah.
So
some of the stuff that Alex's own gear can do is picking up the load from the temple systems,
which may not be ultimately enough, because again, you're talking about a portable system, which is always going to be typically going to be less than what you.
Yeah, but that's one of the reasons that I wanted. That's one of the reasons that I wanted Roddy to go deploy my stuff, so that I could also get a satellite uplink when I'm ready for it.
Very nice. Hoofda. Okay. All right. Cool. Comfort and support with soldier. I love that approach because it's not something that we end up rolling. I say offensively. That's not really the right word, but it's pretty close. Yeah. Let's see what we can do with that. Why don't you? Yeah. Let's give us the roll, Roddy. As you're bringing I will cut away while we're doing this for just a second. As you guys are coming down, you feel this. The guards are just like, there's a big argument there with the guards about like sort of, did you do something? Is this about do we have to go back up there and get that stuff? And other ones like just looking at that one going like, are you great? That was like a backpack of that. No, this is the temple. No, come on, let's go. Don't be, did they do this? My God. That kind of reaction, sort of thing. They move pretty quick. So you're probably moving things along. Any thoughts there? Any stuff that you want to? Because they seem to be not 100% surprised that the temple is doing weird shit. But I don't know if you want to delve any more into that, or you're just running and trying to get back there as fast as you can.
Yeah. Screw the guards. I'm just gonna hoof it back as quickly as possible.
Okay, that's fair.
And you know, if Gothwitch looks like she wants to join, fine. But if she's like, oh no, Reddy will be like, make sure these guys don't get into too much trouble.
Yeah, there's a little bit of like, hey, where you going? Like he's going where you're just you go, we'll keep up. Kind of thing. Okay, so I see a 9 on the comfort and support. Which obviously we can turn into something other than that should the desire take us, but we could also leave as is for kind of some interesting mixed result stuff. What is your preference there as far as that goes? Because the idea, my thought on a 9 is that I don't know, some sort of blowback sort of stuff sort of at you just because of the incompatible systems and that kind of stuff. But
I mean, if you want to call it Unleash Your Powers, that's fine. In that case, I would get actually a 10 because my freak is higher.
No, I'm not thinking of it like an Unleash Your Powers kind of a thing. I'm just thinking usually with a comfort and support at a 9, it's good for them and it doesn't really do anything for you.
Yeah, which I'm fine with.
Okay, all right, that's fine. As opposed to nice if I'm using the
let me put it this way.
Yeah.
Like this game, the mechanics of this game mean that a lot of people will get hurt in a lot of different ways. But it all comes down to like their emotional state. But the game also makes it easy or relatively easy to help someone once that has happened. And right now, the being that's hurting most is whatever is left of this guardian in this system. And the apes by proxy, but right now is the time to help them out, and so
yeah,
that's where I'm coming from.
Okay.
You're muted.
So on a hit,
Oh, there you go. You're just like.
They hear you.
They hear you. They mark potential, clear a condition, or shift labels if they open up.
Yeah,
I say.
Like I will also say, like if you as a GM see a golden opportunity to make a move at this point, just make the move. Like you don't have to, wait for the roll.
I know. I'm mostly just using it as kind of like a guideline to get an idea of the thing. But I like some of the verbiage here. Just I like you picking comfort and support because of, not least because of sort of the verbiage that surrounds that move a little bit. I love the they hear you. So they hear you. What do they hear you say? Like what are they hearing? What are the first words that come through clearly and ungarbled to them after all this time?
I mean, it's going to be a data feed of the gorilla population here, the current situation, all that great stuff. But what it's going to really amount to is the people that you are here to protect and guide are doing well. There are people from outside who are here to help them, but we need to talk to you now.
Okay.
I guess another way to put it is like you did your job as guardian, but the job has gotten harder. We need to all have a conference about that.
Yeah. No, I like that. I like that a lot. Okay. So so this time the temple guardian that had appeared in front of Joe and actually is like was looking at things going, "Oh, this is bad." Disappears again. But reappears almost instantly. Sort of I want to say in front of Alex, but I kind of picture them sort of on top of some of the structure or the pieces and parts that are there.
Yep.
And looking around and looking down at you and seeming to actually interact with the space and perceive the space. And looks at Alex and says, I expected this. You're the outsiders who brought the king back. So that's where we are now. Okay. And she looks at Tahi and says, I did not expect you, but welcome, sister. Tahi, who's hasn't been at the school for very long, but enough to sort of start to get a sense of what her life must be like as seen from the outside. Kind of leans a little bit over to Alex and kind of murmurs like, "We don't usually call ourselves that." Sister, you've made a few modifications to your temple. Yes. Well, the great calling. There was so much going wrong. There was so much that could go wrong. There was so much that I was still seeing of the great enemy, and Thais. Again, she kind of raises her eyebrow in a way that you have to wonder, like, how is she doing that being made of stone? But she gives a great impression of a raised eyebrow. I'm just going to give you this one for free, so I'm not monologuing anything. But the expression on her face to refer to I call it Kiln's ancients, as the great enemy is very weird. Because while they were never on the ancient side, they were created by them, and they never really, like, there's a weird disconnect there because that never really, even by Kiln's people, I don't think ever really got explained entirely satisfactorily because they were made by the ancients, and yet we're fighting the ancients, and yet the temples are still a safe place, and yet they don't really help us, etc. But you never ever heard a temple guardian refer to the ancients as the great enemy. That was Kiln's people's thing, or they were called the ancients, or something. So for her to be using that terminology is it's a bit odd, but also probably a comfort. Thank you for your information on everything that has happened. She's speaking again to Alex. Have the attacks begun?
There's pretty much a series of ongoing attacks. You got to be more specific. At this point, Alex is also going to signal the rest of the team to get in here if there's anybody who's not already here.
Yeah. And I, certainly somewhere Roddy comes pelting into this, or pelting in through one of the doors pretty quickly.
And Joey, bring the old guy with you.
Oh yeah.
He's with us.
Well, yeah, and Joe and Matt and stuff are here.
Question before we get
Uh-huh.
farther.
Mm-hmm.
Has has Tahi shown any abilities towards, you know, you know, foretelling or prostigate, seeing the future?
No,
Okay.
no, not really. This all, that portion of it seems to be a part of the hack that they were working on, and whether or not it was prognostication as much as like prediction based on information, and then like mix that together with like just basic extrapolation plus paranoia plus fear. Not necessarily wrong. Doesn't make it wrong. But calling it future vision would also probably be inaccurate. Beyond a certain point. But shockingly right, though. Or accurate.
So Tycho history.
So my question would be, is the show still going on over our heads?
It's quieted.
Okay.
That's a good question.
I'm just wondering what Met might see there, having come in, and what her reactions might be to some of the imagery that was described.
I welcome anybody to throw in stuff that would be happening in the air overhead, but when I say quieted, I mean it's become less pronounced, vivid, jumpy, certainly, and it tends to be echoing the conversation that she's currently having. Okay, so
but the most important question here is, does it look like the time portal from Lost in Space?
Maybe a little. I don't know about the actual ring effect around it. No, it's more of a three-dimensional movie playing up above, kind of a deal. Maybe I haven't seen that movie in long enough to really be able to say. The thing that I'm sticking of him.
Got it. So we cannot punch not Tahi into it.
No, Tahi, not Tahi. The Temple Guardian is not physically there. It's a projection as well. So, their physical bodies sort of subsumed into all the other crap that's in the room here a little bit.
Please don't break my temple.
So, for instance, like to give you an example of this, when Joe kind of gets up here, she'll turn, pay attention to him, eye contact. King, I have been reassured that your people are still well, and around them, like I shouldn't say around her, but in the back or above, in the air, the imagery is all stuff related to her history with the king of this tribe, the leader of this tribe, through iterations. So you're seeing little flickering bits, and if you pay close attention, you can kind of, again, you go back to the comic book and start putting those pieces together that are flickering around in the background. You can start to see, okay, we piece together all these bits. So the first, the image of the first leader that that really got through to her, but then died before she could do anything for them, and 2 more generations passed before, another one comes that seems to have that level of.
Aren't we all the same? Aren't we all the same body?
Yeah, but the thing that yes, but that didn't happen.
You were the body.
That body wasn't the first one that really got through to her and said these people are worth it. It was too late for that one because she couldn't just reorganize the temple that fast. But the next one, she started to see it and started to, probably even before she realized she was doing it, start to make preparations for when that would have to happen. And you see that body being preserved and that body strengthened so that the person would stay longer. And then when they simply couldn't be held on to anymore out of sheer frustration of it, it was actually them who suggested, I cannot stay, but my body can, and the body can become the vessel for the next great person, and I think it will be this person. And she was convinced. And that was the thing, to have that idea come from outside to get, kind of a thing. So you see these bits and pieces, like again, this is a thing you have to almost like go back to later and replay the scene frame by frame to go, okay, what are all these pieces that are happening here in the background? But you see, as she's looking at you, playing through the bits, you see the flashes of all the work in Gestalt. What you're seeing is all the work that went into you getting to where you are, all the steps up to that part. But there is no scene that shows you, because she was gone by then. The system was, for lack of a better word, automated by that point in time. It was the functions of the temple, the way they had been rebuilt to work, and the understanding of the tribe on what needed to happen.
Is there any more future stuff coming up on the screen?
When she sees you, yes. When she's talking to Joe, and I say screen, it's literally up in the air as like a three-dimensional thing hanging in the sky. I gotcha. But when she's talking to Joe and she greets him, and it's good that your people are well. You are who I feared and hoped would eventually come to the tribe. Someone from outside who they need and who needed them. I do not know your name.
Joe.
Joe. Good, strong, simple. It is a pleasure to meet you, Joe.
Likewise.
And when she turns to Met, again, the images shift. There's, again, I'm going to go back to that moment of confusion that you guys have heard me say it, although you weren't here for this, but you guys all get a chance to perceive what I'm referring to as that sort of fear ball, the unknown tangle of potential that she seems to be absolutely goddamn nightmare terrified about. That is what is what is up there displayed and it seems to be it's the connective tissue between what she knows about her tribe and where things end up. It's the transition from Joe to Met. Before she gets to seeing Met and in the background, the ship taking off and the ship flying into space and the stars and somehow you have to wonder what is going on in this tech, because there's a sense of loneliness that does not simply convey visually, but it is nonetheless palpable. You are also someone that I both feared and anticipated arriving, a promise and threat from the future, both. And you are welcome, while at the same time I feared your coming.
I do not intend to cause you distress, but I am here for Joe.
She kind of squints and her mouth kind of opens and then doesn't immediately say anything. I think that's good. But she doesn't sound 100% sure about that either. But 70, solid 73% sure that's, that she at least thinks that's good.
My own prognostication indicates it's a good thing.
There you go.
I heard you, Margie. Your own what? What was the word?
Prognostication?
Yeah. I just
Procrastination. I can't
Prognostication.
talk today.
prognostication. I got you. Dave was talking
get
over it
there.
the first time, and I
I'm
didn't
sorry.
catch it.
I was just
no, it's
saying,
fine.
Joe puts his arm around Matt,
Ooh, okay.
around her shoulders.
This is very different than what I was
Prison.
expecting, and I
It's been
don't
a
know
while
that.
since you had expectations.
Yes, I'm not entirely sure I'm fully functional. I know I'm not. But thank you, because I am far more than I was, and far more than I have been for a great passage of years. Thank you, and looks to Alex for that. What? To Alex, she says, I know the expression on your face. I know you for what you are. You are a soldier and a guardian. I've seen that face on many who were bestowed with this body over the years. You did not bring me back to this state for casual conversation. Why are you here? What needs to be done?
Well,
I'm suddenly just picturing, like, that's the verbal version of you cracking, like lacing your fingers together and cracking your knuckles and going, okay. But anyway.
I'll explain. No, there's too much. There's an entity called Fluvis, which is this watery corrupting force, which is currently active in the world, and we have multiple goals revolving around, and Alex will point at Joey, that dude, who is a human being that we know who has been put into the body of this gorilla, and we were hoping to get him back into a human body, and that's kind of why we're here. But, and then points at Kiln, they know more about Fluvis and can probably explain more, but basically that sort of came along too, and so we're basically here for a bunch of reasons.
So you are young. Which I was not expecting, but again, is welcome. Young is refreshing.
I will look at her and say, I am here for one reason. I am here to prevent the future from occurring.
You are from the future.
Yes.
That's unexpected. And if my nightmares are, well, because of my nightmares, I will say personally that is welcome to hear. What is the Fluvis is the threat? He is one of the ancients.
So the bugs upstairs are controlled by the thing that we call Fluvis.
Where are they that woke me? And is looking around for Kiln.
I'm in the room.
Right. Yeah. Turns to where you are. Now, when the Temple Guardian sort of instantiated in the center, I think it became clear to Kiln that you didn't have to maintain like a push.
Yeah.
Anymore. To kind of keep things together. So it could have easily come together.
For comedy, I think it'd be funny if Alex said, "No, you have to keep touching it the whole time." But
no, don't let go. That'd be really. That would be kind of funny. How are you here? How are one of you here? You've been gone for so long. I had so many contingencies in place for someone, anyone else, to be able to awake me, and everything. There was always a place for one of your people, but it was always the easiest possibility, and one that I could never hope for. How are you here?
I was put into a healing pod um, back in my time, and when I woke up, uh, the pod must have malfunctioned. I was here in this future.
Where were you? And I don't care if you make something up or you give me a general world location or something like that, but like whether you give like make up a
The
name of.
Temple of Alkaka.
Yeah, I don't care. Like I don't care what it is. I kind of vaguely care where it was physically at in the world, but
Rolling 2411 on the street of Silver Springs.
or something like that. I don't, or
Just up the street, there's a really cool Kraken on a Stick
yeah,
place.
really good noodles. But for her at least, it seems to be an important question. I understand that you can tell me anything you want, but for her, it seems to be an important question of like, where did this, you know, where was it a temple? Was it
In
a simple healing pod in one of the fortresses?
it had been in one of the temples, although the temple was kind of destroyed and it was a chore to get out by the time I awoke.
It was destroyed when you awoke, but not when. So what I'm curious about, I'm just going to pull back from this for a second. What I'm curious about is like, where were those ruins? I can't remember if you said it was like
I never said I have no idea.
you have no idea. Okay. Anybody have any suggestions for like a cool place where Kiln would have been like originally found?
Polynesia.
Morocco.
Morocco. Morocco would be.
Jackson County, Missouri.
The Devil's Tower.
Appalachia.
Never go to
Yeah,
Jackson
the,
County,
the, the
Missouri.
Devil's Chair in was it Wales? No, southern England.
Southern England. Devil's Chair.
Yeah,
Remember,
Avebury.
Noise?
Avebury.
Remembering
I remember.
the Devil's
No, I remember
Deep
the Devil's.
Avebury?
That chair was the bane of my existence for the following 4 days. So yeah, I remember that chair.
New Zealand?
No, it was New. I mean, I'm down with. I like New Zealand because it's volcanic, or was ish, and is
And
it's
there was some
Name of the weird
implications.
mound in the middle of Australia.
There were some
Like a-
implications early
Ayers,
on.
like the really sacred place in the middle of Australia.
there's a couple good ones in. So tell me where were you thinking of, James?
Easter Island.
Well, it was also implied kind of early on that my people are from somewhere in the Pacific-ish.
Sure. So yeah, somewhere like that, the Polynesian area, but New Zealand works as well. I like that because of the volcanic idea there. What might have been at one point in time a thing, geographically speaking, could be a very different sort of place now, and the destruction might have been simply the shifting of the world over time. Um, in any case, you can toss out. Now, I've used the phrase Lemuria a couple times because that's supposed to be a Pacific kind of location or whatever, but something like that where they get a general idea of where you were talking about. It's amazing that could have happened. It doesn't seem like the imagery, and again, every time she's talking, you're getting this background imagery kind of stuff exciting this, but what's playing in the background is all the battles and the massive destruction and that sort of thing. It just seems, again, to kind of underline that idea that it seems almost impossible that anyone could have, when that whole thing led to the ruin of both sides, that one person made it through, or that it could have resulted in you making it through to
More
this.
than one person or thing.
Yeah. No. Yeah. It just seems. I don't know.
No, I was thinking of what's his name, who from the statue or from the temple in the museum.
Yeah. It was more than one thing. Yeah. Yeah. Fluvis is still here and is waking up or active, searching for this temple, and one of your and this seems to a greater or lesser extent seems to coincide with your waking. It would seem that he knows and either rises up to do battle once again or raises his head looking for a prey long thought lost.
Did you ever think that maybe that she awoke now because of Fluvis's rise?
Which she are we talking? You lost me on pronouns on that one.
I'm sorry.
They?
That Kiln might be here because Fluvis has returned.
That is also possible. I should not be surprised that you're the optimist.
I'm trying to decide how much I'm going to blow her mind. So that's okay. Go on.
All right. No, that is also possible, and thank you. I would not have thought your arrival may have been a response to them. And there's some comfort in that thought. Again, she's going to... Okay, so she sort of collectively addresses... She's not really making strong eye contact with Tahi at all. Some discomfort there, some awkwardness. So the comment, you've brought companions, fellow warriors, those that would face Fluvis. You've come here seeking answers, but also seeking a way to defeat him.
Yeah, that sounds really good. How do we defeat him?
If you came here for that answer, you will sadly be disappointed. I don't have I can assist. The temple never had that power.
Assistance is all we need.
What is your plan? I kind of knew when I said it.
Punch him a lot of times.
How well do you cover up do you even bother covering up that kind of a response? Because it's a fair response. I'm not saying you have to cover it up, but I mean, if you try to play it cool, that's fine. Um,
Oh no, Alex has no illusions about this. It's like, we don't have a plan. What are you talking about?
well, you needed all right. You needed answers. That is understandable. You stand in what may be the last fortress, or at least the last fortress that I know of. I'm a bit behind the times. Sister, does your temple still stand? We could.
We all look at
Yeah.
Alex.
We all look at Alex. Oh God.
I said I was sorry.
Yeah, the whole dialogue there is, sister, does your temple still stand? If so, we could, and she just lets it trail off at that point based on the expression on Tahi's face, and everyone else is like sort of awkward, looking away and shuffling. Are they gonna get? Okay, so Sync. You get a little kind of a so Gothwitch kind of like doesn't tug on your sleeve. She kind of takes your elbow a little bit. Are they gonna get mad if I say something? Or is it okay? If I just kind of jump in here?
I'm sorry, whose sleeve is she tugging on?
Sync.
Roddy.
Roddy.
Oh, I completely missed that.
Yeah, so
sure,
Gothwitch
go
is.
ahead.
Are you sure? So
Move the story along.
she gives you the oddest look. So, all right. We got a fortress. We got this place that they've been trying to find for ever. We got a whole bunch of people that kick ass. And we got a guy that wants to kick our ass. What if I'd say we just send up a flare and see what happens. Bring him here. I mean, either you woke up because he's waking up, or he woke up because you woke up. But in either case, he's probably wanting to find you. That seems like the kind of thing you'd want to see coming, instead of getting surprised by it later. Met, everything you said about this says there's going to be something that happens here. Get a big old.
Met chuckles to herself.
Yeah,
It says, and that is why you are the leader
I forgot about that.
of this change.
I'm the what now? She's like, because I don't think she's heard this bit. You know what? Yeah, and don't tell me when I'm going to die either. If you happen to know that, just tap it. We get a great big neon open sign and put it up where they can see it, and let's get this. Let's get this thing set up, and let's get this place set up and see what happens. Let's bring them in. I mean, I don't know if there's going to be a better place than this unless we take everybody back to the island.
I worry a little bit about the people here.
I mean, if you don't want to do it here, that's fine. I'm just going by what Met said, where it seems like a bunch of the stuff that's going to happen is supposed to happen here. But if we don't want what's going to happen, having stuff not happen here seems like a good idea too. We've got the super ship. We can lure them away. I kind of feel like if all of us go someplace that isn't here, this Fluvis person is going to come after us. I mean, He probably doesn't like Kiln. He definitely doesn't like me. He hasn't probably met Roddy yet, but I guarantee you he's going to piss him off.
Roddy pisses everybody off.
It's a
We'll kind of shrug and nod.
it's a tactic. It's a
I-
tactical maneuver.
I have a question, but Alex has enough discretion that they're going to direct this privately at Grogan or somebody else who's here who has maybe more wisdom and experience. So they're going to go ask real quick.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah.
But yeah, they'll chime in with this place is probably the best place for our defense. Definitely here, but maybe not right now. I do agree we need to go prepared, and they're going to run off and ask Grogan, hey, question. The device to make a gorilla into a super gorilla is right here, right?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a reason you can only make one?
There's only one body.
The only way I can explain his just blinking utter bemusement is if you'd like walked up to the Pope and said, "Is there any reason that I mean I don't really get your whole thing, but it seems to me like the Eucharist could just make a lot of Jesuses. Is that accurate?"
Yeah, that's fair.
Like that's kind of like what like the words all make sense individually, but put in that order, he can't decide whether he should like think about it and give it some consideration or just hit you with the nearest smoking sensor that he's got.
I mean, from Alex's perspective, the question is more like, hey, if God is everywhere, I can hear everything that we say. Why do I need to confess to a priest?
That's fair.
Why don't I just go direct?
Yeah.
The question makes perfect sense, and his reaction makes perfect sense as well.
Right? I mean, I just like the question absolutely makes perfect sense because an army of super gorillas is pretty awesome. And not for nothing releases Joe somewhat from his great obligation. So I can see a lot of layers to Alex's thought process here that may or may not even be part of Alex's thought process. Certainly part of mine, obviously, because I just said it. But so there's kind of what Alex does is there's a lot of different conversations happening. Like the two Temple Guardians are having a bit of a conversation. Gothwitch is sort of half turned to both. She's talking to Roddy, but she's also talking sort of just past Roddy, also to Met and Joe, saying like, "Hey, we can stay here, but I get you want to protect these people. So, I mean, the ship makes a really good moving target to lure everybody away. It's just a question of like, where do we run to? Because if we just run, that's not a plan. That's what you do when a plan fails. So the plan should be like go to a place." The only place I can think of would be back to the academy, but that gets complicated, but not wrong. It maybe breaks your whole timeline thing, which sounds like a good thing. So she's saying all this stuff. The Temple Guardians are talking. Alex is kind of talking to Grogun. Kiln.
1020.
Yeah, 1020. Kiln, I want Kiln to say like what Kiln thinks should like. What do you think? Did you wake up in response to Fluvis, or did Fluvis wake up in response to you? When those different suppositions are thrown about, what felt like the truth?
I don't know. If I say Fluvis woke up to me, do I take a powerful blow?
I mean, do you want to?
No.
I think in this, the way I'm thinking is like these two. I don't know that you've maybe thought around it a couple times because you don't necessarily want to think about it. Now because initially, of course, you didn't know Fluvis was a going concern. Then you did. Then you don't want to think about the coinciding elements and stuff like that. I feel as though the two different Warring statements. There are two wolves within you. One wants you to cut your hair short. One wants you to grow your hair long. You are bisexual. No, the two wolves within you, or there's two potential truths there. One is this was what the pod was always meant to do and bring you back, and it was Fluvis. This recurring threat. The great enemy is back, and now you are. Or happenstance happened, and now the potential is in the world for Fluvis to do some horrible thing if they just render you down into your component parts. They really need your spleen, whatever thing. They need one of you, and you were all gone, and now you're back. One of those I feel like is going to ring in your head like a bell. I don't know which one it is. I feel like Kiln should, though, or does. I'm not waiting to hit you with a take a powerful blow unless you think that would be a cool thing to do, but which feels right?
I think that while there's so much delicious guilt with the
You woke Fluvis up?
yeah, I feel like there's a sense of poetics around. I woke up after all this time because there was danger in the world again.
The danger.
And
yeah.
It's
I'll give you one.
my job has always been to help protect against this.
Yeah. That's great.
And which apparently is happening even after I've died. So
I really like that.
I will give you underpinning logic as to why that is the case.
Hmm?
Because your friend from the temple in the museum,
Nega?
who's been here the whole time, was already polluted by Fluvis.
Possibly.
We know he was.
Yeah.
Because he is...
No, I didn't mean possibly it was. I meant possibly that was connected to the whole rest of it. Carry on.
Right, because we know that he is the corruptor.
Right. Ooh. I thought I knew that, and then I didn't know that, and now I know it again, and that is definitely an ooh. So, knowing that you're there, or feeling this truth that you're there as a response, that this is at least partly the why, or the initial why of why you're here. What then? Again, we go back to whatever Kiln's truth is. What is the move here? Is it draw the enemy away or draw them in? Are you distracting the great eye of Sauron from Frodo and Sam by charging the Black Gate, or are you standing at Helm's Deep and saying, "Let them come"?
God.
I can't help it. I just finished reading the series to my kids. It's in my head.
No, the one kind of hold up there is that given how right now Fluvis is kind of less than the Eye of Sauron, he's just a vague looming threat with like no pinpoint location.
Yes.
They knew where Sauron was.
True. Yes. No matter what happens, you guys kind of have to put up, either way, tactically speaking, you have to put up some kind of flare saying, here we are, here's what we've got, come and get it. And either then become a moving target or become a stationary thing where it's like, you literally go, late 1800s Irish boxing match where you just stand there and see how hard, and see if you can withstand the first punch.
And then the second, and then the third.
Yeah. But one way or the other, I think tactically, no matter what, there's definitely a. And I'm tying this somewhat back to what Alex said about like I'm going to need a satellite uplink eventually. There's a point at which you shout and say "Yo," but then what? Is it a stand and fight, or is it a run and keep them moving? Stick and move, stick and move.
I mean, I would say stand and fight because we've seen that he's the Fluvis is clearly willing to draw things out, gather his strength, corrupt people, which so running away just gives him more time to do that.
And more targets to corrupt.
Yeah.
So I'm going to just
And
but-
remember that Gollum is back in hometown.
yeah.
So I
I don't
wouldn't
think we
want
want to be near that.
I wouldn't want to bring destruction to these people without I'm not just gonna make that call.
I
that
got
this
you.
is where we make
Well,
our
the question
stand.
is there a safe place for the non-coms to be?
The Grogun says pretty succinctly, none of us are unfamiliar with battle. None of us are allowed that luxury. But I'm going to encapsulate kind of what you said there, Kiln, into like basically say Kiln said that or some essential thing like when all the babble is going on, essentially what you said that.
I will take the ring to Mordor.
Well, yeah, or rather, here we shall stand, here we shall stand kind of a thing. But all that stuff about, if we go, we're drawing them into places where they can corrupt. If we stay, we're putting them at risk. But I think absent that, I think we should stand here. The Temple Guardian will respond to that saying, of all the people in the world, these people can resist his corruption more than any others. As well or better than any others. That has been part of my great labor. So if part of your worry, your concern, is the corruption that Fluvis can bring to those around you, know that here is the best chance of avoiding that. It doesn't stop everything, but I can at least give you that. These people are pure. Ish.
Hey, there's one other thing I haven't heard you folks talk about yet. The apes are kind of hunkered down in this base, and they're kind of terrified of a bunch of monstrous bugs above, on the surface. I kind of feel like they deserve better. I kind of feel like they deserve to kind of come out and do their own thing, don't you?
Joe will look at Grogan and say,
We hide to hide the
You-
temple, but the sunlight would be good.
if you're willing to fight, then this is a good place to fight.
If you fight with us, we are willing. And we're going to stop right there.
It's-
We're going to stop right there on that. That'll be like the last panel. If you fight with us, we are willing. And we just, if that's okay. Unless Joe's got an even better
Well-
closing line.
No, I need to phrase it best. So
All right. Then
I
we'll
was going
start
to say
with
something, but
Then we'll start with your phrase next time. Next time is going to be.
'Cause my
Go ahead.
my headphones just died as Dad started talking.
Next time is going to be a Donnybrook, ladies and gentlemen.
And I'm still on board with Super Gorillas. That was an entirely serious suggestion.
I don't know. You couldn't necessarily make a bunch of Joes, but you could definitely do something.
Yeah, like if we can power these people up and give them better odds against whatever's coming, like I'm okay with that.
That sounds really cool. It sounds like the kind of thing that Aegis would want to weaponize later.
Well, you're not gonna let that happen, so that's
I love it. All right. Cool. That was a lot of talking stuff, but I think it really set us up for a whole lot of doing next time, everyone, ladies and germs. And we can go ahead.
Go ahead.
No.
No.
I was going to say we can also like talk a little bit about prep this week and kind of read as read some stuff that, so we can we don't have to have all of the conversation about all the stuff that needs to be done ahead of time. We can talk about that ahead of time so we can then go, okay, and all that stuff that we talked about this week is the stuff that's happening here in the background while we're getting ready for this other thing. And what is the lure? What does the flare look like? That goes up and out kind of deal. Now, what were you going to say, Margie?
I was just going to remind you that Tahi is the architect.
Which is that's going to be really good because honestly, there is a limit to how much the old Temple Guardian can do at this point in time. She's essentially a ghost in the machine. She's limited also by how much she's been expanded by Alex's tech, and at some point in time, Alex is going to need that back. So Tahi's becomes both, obviously, the architect by virtue of having been. That's kind of what I've been doing with her, is kind of exposing her to the idea of this is what you was actually capable with the stuff that you have, as opposed to the limited role that you played. So she's been educated toward that, and now she can actually step into the role to do more. Not least because the previous Temple Guardian had only themselves to rely on and sort of their instincts and their desire to do so. Tahi can cheat. She's got all kinds of people who are ready to hack the shit out of this place. So, maybe one person who's like, please don't wreck my temple. But, between Alex and just Roddy sort of
doesn't get broken,
Yeah, Roddy's
Crucifon is okay.
Between Alex's knowledge and Roddy's general sort of
Roddiness?
Unconventional approach to nearly everything. Both of those things together, I think, are going to be a really good deal for. But yeah, having her as the architect, that fits in nicely, and hopefully I've been feeding her into that position with like sort of what she's seeing and processing and stuff like that in the last couple of sessions. So I think we're going to end up that way. Thank you for the reminder, though. I really appreciate that. Have you done all the things? Pausing 1 second. Have you done all the things? You're going now?
Oh, I need to take my pill.
You should do all the things. Yeah. All right, cool. All right, so quickly around the horn then. Alex.
I will grow into the image of myself.
Cool. Roddy.
Myself.
Okay. Joe.
I'm gonna say same thing. Image of self.
Cool. Yeah, this is actually a really good time to go. I really kind of want my stats to go a very particular direction right now. Matt.
I'm actually going to say the same because I feel like I understand everything that's going on.
Are we gonna get a full house on this? Are we gonna get like a 5 for 5?
Last time.
Kiln.
Yeah.
No, we've never had all 5 people say I grow into the image of myself.
No. Last time everyone was closer to the team.
Yes, that we've done before.
Yeah.
I've never
This
had.
time it was all image of self.
That is really, really cool, honestly, because that is a statement in general about the team in general, which I think is kind of awesome. I always like when people grow closer together, but it's also kind of like I have a really good understanding of what the hell I'm supposed to be doing right now. That's pretty cool. All right. Everybody adjust your labels accordingly and stuff, and I'm going to hit the not record here. Kaylee says good night because she's finally going to bed because she's a slacker.
Good night, Kaylee. Good night, Kaylee. Good night, Kaylee.
All right. And Gonna get over here and hit stop. If I can find the dang controls. And there's a bow on 24.